G'day everyone, I'm Dave and thanks for joining me. So just continuing into the 2026 start of the year videos, the last video was a bit of an explainer about how your business can use AI assistance, particularly just related to something that you already know about, like the web pages. Now, there's a very big change coming in what AI can do, and it's coming very rapidly. Now, I've talked about this over, about the past year on this channel and a previous channel last year, but basically it's all pointing to an amazing change in the way every single thing is done. Now, if you want to start at the top, let's go to the biggest company in the world and listen to somebody who's an excellent orator, Jensen Huang, who is the CEO, of course, of NVIDIA. And he's always a very interesting man. He's got some really good stuff to explain. He explains his product very well. He can explain what it does and where it goes. And unfortunately, the presentation goes for about an hour and a half. I personally find it quite interesting. A lot of you out there probably will if you're watching this channel. But I really want to relate it again back to small businesses. It's okay to have the big end of town, doing all this so-called bubble and this and that and everything else, and investment and infrastructure. And a little bit later in the video, we'll look at that and we can see how important that is. And we can also establish, this is not a fad. This is going nowhere. This is going to change very rapidly. And I believe it backs up my argument where your first step is just to have an understanding of what AI can do for your business. So that very simple example of having a knowledge file that you can train it on that is all about your business and you can talk about your business is a starting point. So let's go down and have a look at I'll split this up into a couple of short snippets just to hear what he's got to say, because I think he says it better than I can. And then I'll relate it back to what we're doing and what you can do as a small business. So if we pop down here now, I'll have a look at this section of the video and we'll see what Mr. Wong has got to say.
Whatever those applications are, we know now this is what an AI application looks like in the future. Or another way to think about that, because future applications are built on AIs, this is the basic framework of future applications. This basic framework, this basic structure of agentic AIs that could do the things that I'm talking about, that is multi-model, has now turbocharged AI startups of all kinds. And now you can also, because of all of the open models and all the tools that we provided you, you can also customize your AIs to teach your AI skills that nobody else is teaching. Nobody else is causing their AI to become intelligent or smart in that way. You could do it for yourself. And that's the work that we do with Nemotron, Nemo, and all of the things that we do with open models is intended to do. You put a smart router in front of it, and that router is essentially a manager that decides which one of the tasks, based on the intention of the prompts that you give it, which one of the models is best fit for that application, for that solving that problem. Okay, so now, when you think about this.
Okay, so just to explain that, what he's basically saying is when I create my AI assistants, if you can imagine, we break them into sections. So first of all, you've got the AI intelligence, the AI brain, which is what you're basically buying. You're buying intelligence, and I've talked about it before, where the intelligence is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Tokens, let's imagine intelligence equates to tokens. The number of tokens is the number of intelligence. Now, there's a lot more different measures, how quickly those tokens come, how efficient they are in getting the task performed. But putting all that aside, basically you're buying intelligence, and what he's saying is, okay, you can choose your large language model, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Perplexity, whether it's Claude, whether it's whatever model you want to choose, Gemini 3. That is the brain that you pay for, right? Now that has got the generally trained information that will support the conversation and give a background to the answers that you're prompting and asking, right? But when you've got your own knowledge file, and particularly your own proprietary knowledge, and in this case, just knowledge about your business, okay? You run a shoe shop or whatever it happens to be. You know all about your product, or as I've done in the past, the kayak shop, the carpet shop, there's a million of them, whichever way you can do. You know your product, you know your business. You can take that data and then introduce it to the AI, and that is of course used in conjunction with the large language model to be able to produce the conversation. And it's all about the conversation. So what he's basically saying is now that the way that AI can be trained and fine-tuned on your data when used in conjunction with these larger legacy sort of big models, right? Whether it's an open source model where you keep it off the cloud or even on the cloud with security, or it's basically the generalized model. This is what he's basically saying. Now, he's obviously working at a very high level, but it still all equates back to, small, medium businesses. You've got a business to run, you've got your information. So that's the first thing. Now, what he'll go into next is quite interesting because we're talking about an agentic workflow. Now, you'll see here, the big thing is multimodal, which means the AI, any of you guys out there that have done vibe coding, the big transition has been, or at least for me, is you start out, you were typing all your prompts. Okay, can you do this? Can you change that? Can you make that this way, right? I've been vibe coding for about 2 years. I've been vibe coding before there was even vibe coding tools because it was such a powerful way to check your code. Can you make a suggestion for this? Very clunky in the early days, 2 years ago. But anyway, so basically where it's come to now is you can ask a prompt, you get the answer back, and it's getting better and better and better. So what this multimodal does, which means it takes the AI from just text-based to be able to upload an image. Okay, here's an image. There's a problem with this. Can you fix it? Or can you analyze this image and tell me what the issue is, right? So straight away, and voice. I just talk to it now. The transcript is great. I don't type commands anymore. I literally just talk. Can you do this? Change that. Do this. So this way that we're interacting with the computer and the machines is basically the way it's going to be. But what he's focusing on is the brilliance of being able to be multimodal, and then we'll go into where language models conquer conversation, and conversation is the key. It is the interface in which we will be using machines now for everything, right? So basically you won't be having your old spreadsheets anymore and going down to column 7 and typing stuff in. You will just talk to your AI assistant. I have built one of these and we're prototyping it for a company, so I'll explain that. But if we start at the very top with what Jensen's saying, you will sort of get a bit more of the picture. So this little next section has quite an interesting video to give you a few ideas of what's going on.
This architecture, what do you have? When you think about this architecture, all of a sudden you have an AI that's on the one hand completely customizable by you. Something that you could teach to do your own very skills for your company. Something that's domain secret. Something where you have deep domain expertise. Maybe you've got all of the data that you need to train that AI model. On the other hand, your AI is always at the frontier by definition.
Because you select the model you want to use.
On the one hand, you're always customized on the other hand, and it should just run. And so we thought we would make the simplest of examples to make it available to you. This entire framework we call a blueprint. And we have blueprints that are integrated into enterprise SaaS platforms all over the world, and we're really pleased with the progress. But what we do is show you a short example of something that anybody can do.
This is quite interesting.
Let's build a personal assistant. I want it to help me with my calendar, emails, to-do lists, and even keep an eye on my home. I use Brev to turn my DGX Spark into a personal cloud. So I can use the same interface whether I'm using a cloud GPU or a DGX Spark.
Don't get bogged down in the details, just the concept.
I want it to help me with my emails, so I create an email tool for my agent to call. I want my emails to stay private, so I'll add an open model that's running locally on the Spark.
They also sell
now for any
small
job, I want the agent
GPUs.
to use the right model for the right task, so I'll use an intent-based model router. This way, prompts that need email will stay on my Spark, and everything else can call the Frontier model. I want my assistant to interact with my world, so I'll hook it up to Hugging Face's Reachy mini robot. My agent controls the head, ears, and camera of the Reachy with tool calls. I want to give Reachy a voice, and I really like 11 Labs, so I'll hook up their API.
Voice is going to be massive.
Hi, I'm Reachy,
it's just the natural.
running on DGX Spark.
Hey Reachy, what's on my to-do list today?
Your to-do list today. Grab groceries, eggs,
Multimodal.
milk, butter, and send Jensen the new script.
Okay, let's send Jensen an update. Tell him we'll have it for him by the end of the day.
Will do.
Reachy, there's a sketch too. Can you turn it into an architectural rendering?
Sure.
Now make a video and show me around the room.
Here you go.
That's great. With Brev, I can share access to my Spark and Richie, so I'm going to share it with Anna.
Hey Richie, what's Potato up to?
He's on the couch. I remember you don't like this. I'll tell him to get off. Potato, off the couch.
With all the progress in open source, it's incredible to see what you can build. I'd love to see what you create.
Okay, so the interesting thing about that is my background is also in IoT, the Internet of Things, and how you control things. So when you have got a connection to eyes, ears, knowledge, reasoning, intelligence, you can start to see where this is heading, all right? So that was just a very simple example, but it was a good framework, right? So basically you can choose your large language model that you want to use the power of the brain. What they said there is you can actually run your own NVIDIA H100 chip or whatever you want to run on your own private machine and keep everything there. It's still quick enough to run the AI. So again, going back to where businesses did want to go into the cloud, they wanted their own protection. Mind you, now with encryption and multiple encryption, cloud is not what it used to be, all right? It's not like it's up there for everyone to steal or everyone to get. So I don't think that barrier is really going to be of any consequence. And there's lots of people out there now, like for example, Cloudflare is a huge company where people are actually running these AI applications on the cloud. And I think that is what will end up dominating more than people running out and buying their own software or whatever. Now, if you want to, and again, this is where the cat's out of the bag, if you want to run your own, basically, open source model on your own equipment, you'd be amazed by changing the weights and what it can and can't do, particularly Grok and things like that, or Llama, you will be able to do things that you wouldn't be able to do in the primary models, right? So that is probably the one reason that people would buy their own gear. But let's face it, 99.9999% of us just want to run a business, get on the business, use the technology, and that's where my videos will hopefully help you have some understanding. But that was a great crossover because it showed a few different things. It showed, one, you've now got eyes and ears, right? And the really interesting point about this talk is, and this is why I wanted to make this video, right, is we already know that large language models deal in conversation, right? We already know the models are multimodal, but to train those models, to be able to be trained on the physics of how things actually work, the advancements in that have been massive. So this is really the thing to get your head right around, because it relates also to what I'm talking about, data and how we're going to interact with our data. Okay, so we'll continue down here and see what Jensen's got to say, and then I'll try and explain a bit more.
Isn't that incredible? Now, the amazing thing is, that is utterly trivial now. That is utterly trivial now. And yet, just a couple of years ago, all of that would have been impossible.
Yep.
Absolutely unimaginable. Well, this basic framework, this basic way of building applications, using language models, using language models that are pre-trained and they're proprietary, they're frontier, combine it with customized language models into a agentic framework, a reasoning framework that allows you to access tools and files and maybe even connect to other agents. This is basically the architecture of AI applications or applications in the modern age.
This is
and
really
the ability
important
for us to create these applications are incredibly fast. And notice, if you give it this application information that it's never seen before, or in a structure that is not represented exactly as you thought, it can still reason through it and make its best effort to reason through the data, the information, to try to understand how to...
Okay, that is a key point, all right? So let's do a scenario. You're running your business. Now, basics of business. Every business needs some form of bookkeeping because, you know, we've obviously got liabilities to tax officers and other, authorities that we need to have the paperwork for. So every business needs to have that sort of stuff done, and most people sit down on the computer, they run, whether they're running a third-party software, whether they're paying a subscription, whether they've paid the the licensing for what they've got, whether they've created it themselves. This is the way that we've done it. We go to the spreadsheet, we type down, there was 8 nuts and bolts sold this week or whatever. We type it all in manually, and we do it, blah, blah, blah. That's all out the window, right? That is creating structured data, and it's putting it in a place, and then we can do calls. But the reason that AI is so powerful is it's got reasoning, and the reasoning has got better because the memory has got better, the long chain of thought has got better, to be able to complete long tasks has got better. So once we start to pull all these together, it is just mind-blowing what you can actually do. But I've started to create a system where you just talk to it and it will run your stock. For example, it will tell you, okay, I've used 8 of these or 12 of those. The conversation, because it can use reasoning, it can take unstructured data and turn it into what you want it to turn into. Because it's got intelligence, it's multimodal. If it gets stuck and it doesn't understand something, you can look at something. Like, it can take the conversation, compare it to the context of where it has to be, make the decision, and make the change, right? Whereas the human, we would need to do that. But this is all done just with natural language, right? So this is the next step that I'll show you, but we'll watch a little bit more of this.
Solve the problem. Artificial intelligence. Okay, so this basic framework is now being integrated, and everything that I just described, we have the benefit of working with some of the world's leading enterprise platform companies. Palantir, for example, their entire AI and data processing platform is being integrated and accelerated by NVIDIA today. ServiceNow, the world's leading customer service.
I'll just fast forward this a little bit because I want to
performing is consistent with what it should do. If it doesn't have the ability to simulate the response of the physical world back on its actions. The response of its actions is really important to simulate.
Okay, so I'll come back to this in a minute because I've got some examples of what I'm doing when we come to talking about training your model and using stuff. Now, the next level of this is physics, and that's really a huge breakthrough. But let's pop down here for a minute. Okay, so I've talked in the past, I've done a previous video about a company that basically has Thai staff and they want to use AI to help run their stock management, all right? So imagine this is behind a secure login. So you go here and then you basically, your staff can either read or they can basically choose which language they want to talk into, but I'll just type this in. So you can query and ask questions and input your information as to what you've done, right? So let's say what I did do is I made it a bit more categorized so it's not a general subject. So this is what we call guardrailing. Actually, I should be on the screen, shouldn't I? Rather than hiding here. Okay, so this is what we call guardrailing. So instead of just being generic, we've split it into the main topics of what could be done for a particular project, right? So the reason I say that is LLMs, when they have context, they perform a lot better. So I could just ask a general question about fiberglass and resins or timber and plywood, and it would be smart enough to work it out. But because of the nature of the interface that we're doing, where you can talk into it or you can just type in the text in any language, multilingual, okay, basically what you can do is you can break it down so you get a better answer and response. And I'll give you an example of that, right? So if we click here on fasteners, it knows that I'm going to ask a question about fasteners and stocks, right? Ask you a question about stock and fasteners. So I'm going to ask a question like, how many bolts do we have left in total as of today? All right, now I could speak that language, I could type it, I could speak it in Thai if I could speak decent Thai. But anyway, let's have a look here. So we send this information, and what happens, that information, imagine it's on the work floor, right? And again, we're using AI here to, number one, create the ability to have the answer, but number two, to write that information up, which we'll have a look in a minute. So this will go and this will give the person an answer as to what they do. All right, so I've got no specific nuts and bolts. Mind you, this is only trained on one data. set. So let's have a look at the back end. So if we go into this section here, right, which is the report section, and we go into the transcript editor, we'll see here how many bolts do we have left, right? So that's given me a generic answer. Right, so the generic answer is basically the document doesn't specify a number. I put in one document basically for this, right? So let's go back and we'll have a quick look at one of the previous questions that has got some data. We go back to there. All right, so this one here, I'll use this as a guide, right? All right, I really don't know a lot about this product, so we'll just call it T80 hull, all right? Okay. I'm assuming somewhere in the knowledge file there will be something about the T80 hull. Okay, so let's go back into here. We'll go into stock and fiberglass. We'll select that, select a new chat. We'll select that as thing, and we'll go, how many components are in the T80 hull? See if we get a answer out of this one, right? Just so I can show you the workflow of what I'm talking about, which is basically what Jensen's talking about, where now, because we can talk to our documents, right, our proprietary documents, which in this case is, say, a stock list, right? Okay, we haven't listed it explicitly, all right, so it's not giving us the exact number, but let's go into here, go back to the transcript list, so we'll see that new question has been done, and we can see up here which category it's been put into. But the important part, the reports, right, this section that I've set up, enables you to upload all your raw files. So you might get a stock list in. You can upload that directly to the vector database, which is the most powerful database. That's the main database that all your knowledge is stored from. Then what happens is you can see all the conversation as to what's going on. And what happens is the AI can classify that conversation, right? And it can actually see what your stock levels are. It can give you a response, either as a report in whichever format you want, but basically it's a language report, but it is also has the ability to cross-reference everything you've got. So let's just have a look in here, and we'll go skin tail 28mm, 5 pieces, right? Let's have a look at this. This should give us a similar result if I ask to give you an example, right? So this is from a previous test that we did. Again, it outputs in Thai and English, so it's multimodal, the language isn't a problem. So this time we'll go into the AI assistant and we'll start a new chat, and we'll ask a simple question because I've taken it from the database. Put that in there, get rid of 5 pieces because I'm assuming that's what I'll do, and ask a question like, how many... Now, you see I haven't selected a category here, right? So we don't have to select a category. It's just that it makes sense that if you're dealing with something in that area, it really just guardrails it a bit more and gives it a bit more context, more importantly, than guardrailing. So how many of those, I'm assuming that's somewhere in their vector database that they've uploaded. So this should actually now go and search, and imagine we just ask, okay, there's 3 units, so they must have used some, all right? So basically, so we are busy on the shop floor. We want to know how many things are there. We just tap on the app, ask it, or type it in, and that will tell us what's going on. Now, you could say here, thanks, I am using the last 3 of these 28mm units. All right. Let's have a look here and see what it says. Now, because it's got the context, it knows what it's talking about. The units, it can understand what I'm talking about here, right? I'm going to use the last 3 of these 28mm units, right? So what that does, that goes to the transcript file. So you're talking to your data, you're talking to your AI, and your AI is making the calculation of what's going on. So you're actually running your business using AI, right? Here are the details available to our users, right? So it's giving me the full details of the stock, of everything we've got. And now that is recorded in the transcript. So if we go back to the transcript and we go refresh here. Okay, so I'm using the last 3, and these are what I'm talking about. Now, where that comes into play, and it's really important, what I can do now is I can create reports really simply, right? So, well, today is the 7th of January, so let's create a report only from today to today. We'll generate a report, and as the person who's in charge of running the company, like the bookkeeper or whoever's actually running the accounts or running the stock sheets or whatever, the owner of the company or other staff members, all right, we can see here we've created a report. If we go down here, the 7th of the 1st, we can view the report, and the report is basically saying staff have been inquiring about the levels of fiberglass material, they've required about fasteners, they've said there's fasteners there, right? The total number of T80 stock, the trends, and we can prompt this to give the report in any way we like. And we can see here that we've got these files, so we want to remove the files or add the files. So it's a complete management system using AI. But the concept is you start talking to your stock, you start talking to your business. The AI can take that unstructured data at the end of any period, 1 hour, 2 hours, the end of the day, whatever. It can gather up all that information. It takes the CSV file that's got your actual stock, 8 bolts, 7 of this, 12 of that. It looks at the conversation for the day. The ones that are simple, it just automatically makes the changes to. Right, here is your new stock levels, right? The ones that it's unsure of, it can prompt to go, oh, we're unsure of this, we need a manual check on this. Or, 99.9% was clear, 0.1% was not right? Or whatever the difference is. Oh, 70% of today's conversation was dealt with. Here's the last 30% we were unsure of, we need some more info. This is what you've got to get your head around. AI is not just ChatGPT, it's not you just talking to ChatGPT and getting this out. This is a serious business tool that you're going to be able to integrate into your business, right? So based on that, if we go back and we'll have a look what else Jensen's got to say. I've got another couple of videos here. Now, there's a couple of really interesting things that are a little bit off topic, but you'll sort of start to see what I'm talking about and where this is going. I'm going to jump to a question that is basically why it is not a bubble, right? So it's not a bubble because the amount of infrastructure and compute that's being spent is insane, okay? So I want to briefly touch on that because that's a subject that comes up all the time. Because I'm backing up my argument that as a small business, you can't just keep putting this off. You've got to look at how strong this stuff is, right? So let's just quickly jump down here for a minute and we'll watch this bit on their latest and greatest, Vera Rubin, AI factory machine. Let me just move that up there a little bit.
I mentioned is that this entire system is twice the energy efficiency, essentially the twice the temperature performance, in the sense that even though the power is twice as high, the amount of energy used is twice as high, the amount of computation is many times higher than that, but the liquid that goes into it is still 45 degrees C. That enables us to save about 6% of the world's data center power. So that's a very big deal. The second very big deal is that this entire system is now confidential computing safe, meaning everything is encoded in transit, at rest, and during compute. And every single bus is now encrypted. Every PCI Express, every NVLink, every NVLink between CPU and GPU, between GPU to GPU, everything is now encrypted. And so it's confidential computing safe. This allows companies to feel safe that their models are being deployed by somebody else, but it will never be seen by anybody else.
So that is the point I was making about encryption, having your own, you don't need to go and buy your own software. Once upon a time, people, big organizations didn't really want their information out there in case it was hacked or whatever. But what they're saying is because AI is so powerful and the way they're building the compute stack, that it's encryption all the way along the way. I mean, so basically your information is as safe on the cloud as it is on a local machine. So that's the real point he's trying to make, because they know realistically businesses are not going to start ordering H100 chips to be able to then deploy them on a small scale in businesses, no matter how big the business. It'd be McDonald's, right? Doesn't make any difference. Like, it doesn't value them to do that. It's going to be cloud-based. They'll have concerns about the data safety and everything else. This solves that problem as well. And these guys make it. These are some smart people, So I thought that was an interesting point. Interesting because it carries on and it starts to talk about how much compute has come so far in about 12 months. It's just astonishing.
Charts that people who build AI supercomputers love. It took every single one of these chips, complete redesign of every single one of the systems, and rewriting the entire stack for us to make this possible. Basically, this is training the AI model, this first column. The faster you train AI models, the faster you can get the next frontier out to the world. This is your time to market. This is technology leadership. This is your pricing power. And so in the case of the green, this is essentially a 10 trillion parameter model. We scaled it up from DeepSeek, that's why we call it DeepSeek++, a training a 10 trillion parameter model on 100 trillion tokens, okay? And this is our simulation projection of what it would take for us to build the next frontier model. The next frontier model, Elon's already mentioned that the next version of Grok 5, I think is 7 trillion parameters, so this is 10. And in the green is Blackwell. And here, in the case of
Amazing.
Rubin, notice the throughput is so much higher, and therefore it only takes 1/4 as many of these systems in order to train the model in the time that we gave it here, which is 1 month. Okay, and so time is the same for everybody. Now, how fast you can train that model and how large of a model you can train is how you're going to get to the frontier first. The second part is your factory throughput. Blackwell is green again, and factory throughput is important because your factory is, in the case of a gigawatt, is $50 billion. A $50 billion data center can only consume 1 gigawatt of power. And so if your performance, your throughput per watt is very good versus quite poor, that directly translates to your revenues. Your revenues of your data center is directly related to the second column.
Okay, so I think those graphs are unbelievably interesting, right? So if you see the first graph, we'll go down here, you can see the first graph where they've got the 1/4 mark. This is all before, like last year, they released the Blackwell chips and they've started to roll them out in data centers. And I think this is what's going to be in, Abilene, Stargate, and all these other data centers that are being created. But you can see with this new technology that is now ready, available, that's a new release, you can look at the efficiency, and this again relates to productivity and money, right? So that's why there's so much investment, because it is just 10xing at least every year, maybe even less. And this is what Jensen was saying in the talk. So again, energy is a big issue that, is going to be around, but the fact that AI is becoming smarter and smarter, I'm sure it's going to be smart enough to work out some way to continue with these huge energy gains, right? So that's the reason I wanted to show you that. So this stuff is at the frontier, is moving so rapidly that whatever you decide to do in your business with AI, it is going to work, right? So let's just jump back down here into speaking of reality, let's just jump back down here into reality. Now, going back to small business, and going back up here. Okay, with small businesses, right, let's go back and think, how do I get my head around AI? It's all very confusing and it's all very, I don't know. To be honest, I've found the best way to do anything in life is you just actually start doing something, all right? So, by having an AI assistant that you can train, that you can just literally say, hey, ask this, say that. If I do that, do this. Oh, here's my stock. Here's my nuts and bolts. Here's that. You upload it. It takes no time whatsoever to upload the knowledge file. You ask it a question. You will start to see the penny will drop. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I wonder if I can do that in my business. Oh, I wonder if it can do that. So it's not just about, you will start to get a deeper understanding because you've got a hands-on thing of what you're doing. Now, if we go down to a new product down here that I'm launching, which is very, very simple, called chatbot, or guest chat for hotels, right? So it's basically an AI assistant for hotels. The hotels go in, it's very simple. One-time setup, we take the information from the hotel, we upload it. They have got access, the same here, where are we? If we go into how it works, well, there's lots of videos I've got here on how it works, so you'll be able to visit that if you like. It's just guestchat.online. So here's some videos from hotels and so forth showing how it's multilingual and how it helps the hotel. Now, again, same deal, a very simple setup. The hotel has actually got the ability to log in, they can update their information really, really quickly just by typing it down. They can also do their imaging and they can create reports. There's all sorts of extra things that can be done. But it is basically $199 US, 99 a month, and you've got an AI assistant for your hotel that you can start to then think. Now, a hotel is the sort of business that has lots of paperwork. Lots and lots of paperwork. So the more you can get your head around how you're going to use AI, and the no-brainer obvious one is a concierge about your hotel. And that could be about anything, right? It's even if you didn't want to spend a lot of time. The information you've got on your website is the old way that things are done. The new way, you're just going to ask your AI assistant. I won't go into now because I've got a lot of other videos on how crucial this is, including my previous video, because you no longer need an AI assistant just for humans, you need it for other AIs, right, to be able to do these things. So I suppose what the message that I want to get out of this video is the infrastructure is going ahead leaps and bounds, huge advances. Every year it's going up and up and up. The fact that these things are multimodal open up a whole stack of doors for your business. You don't just think AI is ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever and asking questions, right? It's not about that, or just creating, AI videos for, make everyone laugh. It is a serious business tool, and those in business will need to understand it. Having an AI assistant is the first easiest way to enter the market for you guys. Have a train, have a play with it, put in stuff, get to know it. The fact it's multimodal means that if you don't understand it, you've got no chance then of trying to work out how your business, like I just showed with the yacht shop, can go from being, we need to have this person that enters this data, this person does that, it's lost in conversation here, I don't know who said that, did they say that, did they do that? You just create the whole thing, you run the whole thing around AI, you just talk to it, right? That is the way things are going to be done. It can then take that information and then it can analyse it, it can work out, I understood all of that, but I didn't quite understand that. It uses reasoning, chain of thought reasoning, right? So this is the big frontier change that's happened over the last year. But you're not going to be able to get any further forward in your business if you don't understand that. If you don't understand this is the flow that you need to get. AI can actually do that. I can, you'll get to the point where, I don't like the answer that model gave. Why don't I try this model? And then we can change the model, right? So there's a whole stack of different things you can do. So that is really the core of this video. I want to leave you with one last thing, which, if we're talking about the age of robotics, right? When you think of it, most of us will have a car, right? Most of us have driven a car since we're young, right? A car is just a machine, that's all it is, right? So it's an obvious starting place to have automated cars. That actually makes sense. And obviously, what they were talking about many years ago before AI, we still had machine learning. If you had a closed system, like a city, and you had 100 cars and buses all running around the city, every bus knows where every other bus is, so there's going to be no accidents, really, right? Because everyone knows what's going on. It's not about, if you brake and stop, then this bus knows to do that, and it knows where that is. So you're never going to run into another vehicle because it's all in your own system. This hand doesn't hit that hand unless you want it to. But now, if we have a look at this section about how far they've come with all this different compute, and the main thing, which is really mind-blowing, right, is, so we talk about multimodal stuff. You can scroll something on a bit of paper, get the AI to look at it, and as in that video, it'll produce a full rendered model, be it 3D, video, walk around, whatever. That is starting to create synthetic data. So what he's talking about here is, now that you're using AI not just in language, we're still using language to discuss, but LLMs understand language and conversation. We'll just put it into that basket, right? But do they understand physics? So now you've got LLMs that understand physics. Now, relating it back to where we are in the AI space, they've trained AIs to do code really well, because code is the language that can produce more tools, right? We've given the language model, this model that lives there, that knows about language, now tools to use. And this is where we start to get into this agentic workflow, right? So it's got the tools. Now, these tools that it can actually use, it can call on any time it needs them, and it can action these tools. That is the agentic workflow. Now, imagine this now where it's multimodal. It can see, it can analyze data, and latency, the information is super fast because it's all on board. This is what this displays, and I just think it's a pretty cool way to end the video. So let's have a quick look at this one. And here we go. Move it up there.
I know, it's incredible. Cosmos is the world's leading foundation model, world foundation model. It's been downloaded millions of times, used all over the world, getting the world ready for this new era of physical AI. We use it ourselves as well. We use it ourselves to create our self-driving car. using it for scenario generation and using it for evaluation, we could have something that allows us to effectively travel billions, trillions of miles, but doing it inside a computer. And we've made enormous progress. Today we're announcing Alpamayo, the world's first thinking, reasoning autonomous vehicle AI. Alpamayo is trained end to end, literally from camera in to actuation out. The camera in, lots and lots of miles that are driven by itself, where we human drive it, using human demonstration. And we have lots and lots of miles that are generated by Cosmos. In addition to that, hundreds of thousands of examples are labeled very, very carefully so that we can teach the car how to drive. Alpamayo does something that's really special. Not only does it take sensor input and activates steering wheel, brakes, and acceleration, it also reasons about what action it is about to take. It tells you what action it's going to take, the reason by which it came about that action, and then, of course, the trajectory. All of these are coupled directly and trained very specifically by a large combination of human trained and as well as Cosmos generated data. The result of it is just really incredible. Not only does your car drive as you would expect it to drive, and it drives so naturally because it learned directly from human demonstrators, but in every single scenario, when it comes up to the scenario, it reasons about, it tells you what it's going to do, and it reasons about what's about to do. Now, the reason why this is so important is because of the long tail of driving. It's impossible for us to simply collect every single possible scenario for everything that could ever happen in every single country, in every single circumstance that's possibly ever going to happen for all the population.
Okay, I want to stress that point, okay? So, you're a small business owner, you've got into AI, you know you pretty well now have to make a decision on what you're going to do. I think that is a really good example of how AI is so different to any other technology we've talked about, because it thinks and it has an intelligence, right? Its intelligence can solve problems, right? Now, going back to, as I've said, you've got a standard database, you've got a spreadsheet, right? I've got X amount of stock here, and I've got, this is stock number 1, and it's red, and I've got 7 of them, or whatever, right? Everyone's used to that, typing it in manually, doing whatever. But like an AI assistant, like, so you say take a chatbot, right? If you went to a chatbot for an insurance company 3 years ago, right? There was no AI, it was just pre-recorded. If someone asked a question that they didn't know, it referred them to something else. There was a very limited amount of responses. That's exactly what he said. You can't, in the old way of thinking, right, where all this information had to be exact, there's no reasoning, it's just exact, right? Do I run over this pigeon in Africa, right? You've got no idea. You can't plan for that. You can't put this huge amount of data in, and then all of a sudden, doesn't matter how quick retrieval is, you go, oh, no, I shouldn't run over that pigeon, right? This thinks for itself. It's thinking on its feet. This is the shift. This is probably the biggest thing that, to get your head around AI, is you're dealing with something that can reason like a human. Now, as he said, it's trained. You drive a car. Some people brake fast. Some people brake slow. Some people indicate late. Some people don't. Some people hold steering with both hands. Some people don't. Whatever that way, the style, how you brake, how you drive. It's trained on those physical movements, it works it out. But where the value is, it can take synthesized data, because now the AIs are multimodal, and it can iterate itself through millions and millions and millions of combinations of how it's going to react. That is the thing. So we'll go down and keep going here.
However, it is very likely that every scenario, if decomposed into a whole bunch of other smaller scenarios, are quite normal for you to understand. And so these long tails will be decomposed into quite normal circumstances that the car knows how to deal with. It just needs to reason about it. And so let's take a look. Everything you're about to see is one shot. It's no hands.
This is pretty amazing, actually.
Routing to your destination. Buckle up.
I will fast forward this a bit because you'll get the idea. Fast forward just till it gets to the end.
We started working on self-driving cars 8 years ago. And the reason for that is because we reasoned early on that deep learning and artificial intelligence was going to reinvent the entire computing stack.
Yep.
And if we were ever going to understand how to navigate ourselves and how to guide the industry towards this new future, we have to get good at building the entire stack. Well, as I mentioned earlier, AI is a 5-layer cake. The lowest layer is land, power, and shell. In the case of robotics, the lowest layer is the car. The next layer above it is chips. GPUs, networking chips, CPUs, all that kind of stuff. The next layer above that is the infrastructure. That infrastructure, in this particular case, as I mentioned with physical AI, is Omniverse and Cosmos. And then above that are the models. And in the case of the models above that I just shown you, the model here is called AlphaMayo. And AlphaMayo today is open sourced. This incredible body of work, it took several thousand people. Our AV team is several thousand people, just to put in perspective. Our partner, Ola, I think Ola's here in the audience somewhere, Mercedes, agreed to partner with us 5 years ago to go make all of this possible. We imagine that someday 1 billion cars on the road will all be autonomous. You could either have it be a robo-taxi that you're orchestrating and renting from somebody, or you could own it and it's driving by itself. Or you could decide to drive for yourself. And so, but every single car will have autonomous vehicle capability. Every single car will be AI powered. And so the model layer in this case is AlphaMayo, and the application above that is the Mercedes-Benz. Okay, and so this entire stack is our first entire stack endeavor. And we've been working on it for this entire time, and I'm just so happy that the first AV car from NVIDIA is going to be on the road in Q1, and then it goes to Europe in Q2, here in the United States in Q1, then Europe in Q2, and I think it's Asia in Q3 and Q4. And the powerful thing is that we're going to keep on updating it with next versions of AlphaMayo and versions after that. There's no question in my mind now that this is going to be one of the largest robotics industries, and I'm so happy that we worked on it. And it taught us an enormous amount about how to help the rest of the world build robotic systems. That deep understanding in knowing how to build it ourselves, building the entire infrastructure ourselves, and knowing what kind of chips a robotic system would need. In this particular case, dual Orins.
Okay, so I'll leave it there. But basically, the reason I showed you that is we can see how far this stuff is coming. We can see that the AI and the reasoning has really been the big breakthrough, because a lot of the way that they would do this, the training, the machine learning and everything they did has just jumped to the point where something that we never thought was possible is now possible. And this is the interesting part about AI. So I implore you to make 2026 the year you start at a basic level, get a basic understanding of AI. Start off with a very simple AI assistant. Everyone's got a website. Put an AI assistant on your website, send it out to social media, sit down and play with it, get used to it, right? The entry level is easy, right? Then you'll start to move to the next level and go, oh, how can I implement this more into my business? Because you will have a better understanding of how it works, because you will actually be there going, if asked this, do that, bang, it does it, and you will start to see the power of it. And hopefully this presentation has shown you that this is not slowing down, this is not stopping. And I do lots of examples of this stuff. I do highly encourage you to look at this hour-and-a-half video presentation, because it is very, very good. And if you're technical minded, you'll even love it even more. But yeah, so that's really the message. I wanted to thank you again for joining me. Hopefully you found this interesting. I will be making videos on a regular basis, trying to introduce how all this stuff fits into small and medium businesses. If you want to discuss AI, or you want some sort of audit done on your business, or you're interested in our AI assistance, feel free to contact me, Dave, or contact us there's a million different places you can contact us. Owntheconversation.com is the website. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I shall see you in the next one.